What's up everybody, Psych out here with another Rise of Kingdoms video. I'm going to be really brief in this video. You know we've been talking a lot about Rage, and I've been doing lots of analyses of Rage lately. I want to share two really interesting findings I just came across. I'm going to put a video at the top for a card at the top for a longer video that I did on Rage, testing in particular Rejuvenate and the support tree with Saladin as a primary commander. You might check that out if you want a lot more details. But for here, I'm going to talk about two subsequent analysis. In that video, I did a lot of theoretical analysis. I'm going to pop a chart up right over here, and this chart shows you what should happen theoretically if you have Saladin and Mehmed as your commanders, if you're winning the fight, and if you only have one of those Rage talents maxed out. In this case, let me pop up really quickly on the screen that actual talent tree that we're talking about for Saladin. It would be this one right here, where we don't have any points in Undying Fury, and we have all of these in Burning Blood. So if that is and again, I'm going to pop this chart up here. If that is the talent setup that you have, and you're winning the fight, we expect you to get 86 rage for your attack, 16 rage for your counterattack, 9 rage for your talents, or 111 rage every single turn. And if you add that up over 9 turns, at turn 9, you should have 999 rage, which is not enough to proc Saladin's skill. That means that on turn 10, you should get enough rage to trigger his skill, and then on turn 11, you should actually cast that skill. And that's what this chart shows. It also shows that you should have, after your first skill, so 11 seconds for the first skill, and then it says 8-second skill cycle. That is, it should be 8 seconds between each of the next skills. So we actually went to the battlefield, and we actually tested. I'm going to bring these reports up for you. I tested that exact same build right here in this fight, and if we go to the battle log, we can see that in fact we actually cast the skill on turn 10, which means on turn 9 here it said we were going to cast Hold Fast. That means we had 1000 rage, even though the theoretical analysis says 999. We actually had 1000 rage by this turn. So what does that mean? That means there's something a little fishy going on. It's not exactly 86. It's not exactly 16. To be fair, in Wick Gaming's one of his original discussions of Rage, he said that it's not exactly 86. It's 86 or 87. It's 16 or 17. Depends on some rounding. And I think that's what's going on here. There's some kind of rounding factor that's happening. It's hard to know exactly what that is, but clearly we are firing this off on turn 10, not turn 11 as expected. So that's something really important to know. Also note that we fired the second skill on turn 18, which is what we expected based on that talent setup, but also based on having 3 points in Rejuvenate, getting 150 rage for that Rejuvenate, turn 18, and again on turn 26, and then again on turn 34. So we have an 8-second skill cycle, which is exactly what we would expect. So that all worked out just fine. We just fired them off 1 turn sooner than we would have guessed theoretically. So that's point number 1. That's one thing to know. The second thing that we found out here concerns how many points you want to have in Rejuvenate and which talent build is better for Saladin. In the theoretical video, I speculated that it might be better off with 2 points in the Rejuvenate talent, and it might be better off putting 3 points in that extra rage talent. I'm going to jump back over here to show you what that talent build would look like, and it's actually the current build, the build that I've switched to. So we did the first 2 tests, and I did two tests of this. With this build, this was my old Saladin build. We have 3 points in Rejuvenate. We have no points in Undying Fury. We have 5 points here in Rallying Cry. So this was the very first build I did. The first 2 battle reports I'm going to show you were using this build. Then we did 3 more tests, and those tests all were using this build, which is my current build for Saladin. This is the build that I tested in theory and said, should this build be a little bit better in theory? In theory, this build should have fired off 1 turn sooner, but now that we know the old theory is a little bit wrong because of rounding, that suggests that these 2 should fire off at the same time. And the theory also says that this should have a 1 second faster skill cycle than the other one. So we're going to look at both of those here in a moment. So the first thing we see that's different is 2 points in Rejuvenate. We see 3 points in Undying Fury and only 3 points. So we're losing 2 points in Rallying Cry, which means we're losing 6% of damage for that first 10 seconds of the battle. So let's go take a look at those battle reports and see how this talent build was actually different. Oh, sorry, I went to the wrong place there. Jumping over, so if we look at battle report number 1, this is the one that I just showed you. We see about 5,800 sub wounds for me, about 70,000 for my opponent. Here we see about 5,800, about 70,000. So those are the first two reports. On average, we took 5,860 sub wounds, and my opponent took 70,486.5 sub wounds on average between those two. Then we have 3 with the second talent build, 3 tests with that second talent build. Here's the first one. I took 5,500, so notice it's about 300 fewer sub wounds for me. And my opponent only took 69,810, which is about 800, something like that, less sub wounds for my opponent. So I took fewer, but my opponent also took fewer. Here again, we see about 5,500 sub wounds for me and only about 69,000 again for my opponent. So again, we both took fewer. And on this one, we also both took fewer, 5,500 for me and again about 69,000 for my opponent. The other thing to note about this, if we go to the battle log, I will scroll all the way down to the bottom of this report, and we can see that this battle lasted 73 turns. And if I go to this one, I'm pretty sure all of these were exactly 73 turns, but I just want to double check that. Yes, 73 turns. And again, this one lasted, I think, 73 turns. Yes, 73 turns. And now let's go to these first two, and we can see that even though we both took fewer sub wounds in those last 3, those were actually faster. What was it, about 4 seconds faster, 73 versus 77, so about 4 seconds faster, which might not seem like a lot. It's actually, 4 out of 77 is about 5%. I think that's right. So about 5.2%. So it's a little bit faster, about 5% faster finishing the fight. Look, in a real combat, that actually matters. In real open field fighting in KVK, clearing the field is important. Clearing your field out quicker is really important. In Ark of Osiris, clearing the field out quicker is important. So there's actually an advantage to having a build that clears things faster. Now it's really interesting because it did fewer sub wounds. In these with that new talent build, that second talent build did fewer sub wounds, but we also took fewer sub wounds. I did the math on it. We took about 4.86 fewer sub wounds in those 3 reports on average, whereas our opponent took about 1.74% fewer sub wounds. So we both took fewer sub wounds, but it was a 3.13% advantage in our favor. That is, we did a 3.13% better trade in that situation, which I think is a pretty valuable amount. I mean, if we did this, we worked this out over the course of a KVK, it could be worth a lot of resources, a lot of speed ups, things like that. So the point here is that build seems to be better. It seems to clear the field faster. It seems to get a better trade. Even though it did fewer sub wounds, and I think the reason for that is because it doesn't have that first 10 seconds. And look, in real field fights, a lot of battles are pretty short. Maybe they're only 20 seconds. And we could compare. We could look at the first 20 seconds of the battle to see how things were going. But we only have 3 points here. I'm pretty convinced, and the one thing that I didn't show here, and I want to go back to that battle report to show you one other important factor, which is why was that really more effective? So again, we fired off on turn 10, which is matching with what we thought from a theoretical standpoint. But notice our second skill fires on turn 17, not turn 18. So that is, we are 1 turn faster on our skill cycle with that second build. That is with 3 points in Undying Fury, 3 points in Burning Blood, and only 2 points in the Rejuvenate skill, which I think is a really fascinating set. I don't think a lot of people would think of that intuitively. A lot of people would think, well, getting 50 points in Rejuvenate, that's got to be more than getting 9 points in Undying Fury, but it actually is not the case. So that's a better build. It just seemed like all around that the theory said that should be a better build. And in fact, in practice, both in terms of sub wounds or the trades that we're getting, in terms of the speed of the combat, in terms of getting our skill to fire a faster skill cycle, that seems to be a better build. And that's what I'm going to recommend. I think those are the big takeaways here. One is there's some rounding going on with the way skill cycles fire off, which is good to know. And then number 2, there's a better build for Saladin than the one you might think, and you probably don't want to put all 3 points into Rejuvenate. That's it for this video, guys. If you learned something, if this made your field fighting with Saladin or possibly any other support tree commanders that we haven't tested better, give this video a like. Don't forget to subscribe to the channel and hit that notification bell so you get notified every time I drop a new video. Thanks so much for coming by, and we'll see you all real soon.